Welcome back, guys. Now, for this video, this will be the second episode of the Empowered Individual series. In part one, the first people on the world stage that have been targeted by the system were King Von and also HK from O Block. Those were the first two individuals that you could see parallels where there were certain events that you could see and certain events that you could see. Say, for instance, one of the tell signs that you find from a person that has been targeted is their constant harassment, either by the law or somebody who appears to be in one incident after the other continuously. Now, in the second episode, we're going to so we'll just have a look here. The first episode was King Von, and now just to piggyback off that first episode is that individuals are a person that is targeted will always be under a form of surveillance, and they will be made aware that they were under surveillance. It will become known to them. In the beginning, perhaps it will be more a covert operation, and historically, there are other figures that have spoken about, shown signs of, I want to say, kind of like you get a feeling that you're being tracked, you're being watched. Sometimes the 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 people sometimes they will go as far as to contact you. You know, you could be on tour, and somebody will contact your hotel room that you just arrived at, just so that you know that you're being tracked and you're being followed. Just to keep with the first episode, we're going to take a look at another person who is from the south side area of Chicago as well, and that would have been I'm just going off the top of my head here, guys. I'm going to go with possibly Melly. We're going to go with 051 Melly. Now, one of the tell signs that we mentioned also is there'll be somebody around the individual, whoever's been targeted. There'll be someone who will be named as a handler. So this person, the handler, would have contact with the intelligence service or somebody from the law branch, and that person will be charged with always being close to the target subject, feeding information both ways. Now, one of the tell signs with 051 Melly was that he always seemed to he seemed to be linked or have contact with situations that you wondered, like, how did he get this intelligence from? And just prior to his death, which was possibly around, just prior to his slaying, should I say, again, timely death, there was, there, so they somehow come into contact with, what you got to remember is that the government, they have a they use something called, they create people that what you'd call a Manchurian candidate. Now, the premise of this is that these really, are under a sort of form of, mind control, which they call, the MK Ultra. Unbeknownst, usually, some will fall under the category of, do they feel like they have a mental illness or something that makes them act out of character. Now, these guys were targeted because normally once you go through something, you can see others who are similar and, would have been affected by something very similar to yourself. Now, so the MK Ultra mind control, which is, a sort of an experiment that the governments, they receive the information or the technique, how they do it, through the Nazis from World War Two. So they gathered that information from, um, after World War Two, and they started to use it onto their own subjects, because they realized, they said, oh, well, we could use this on the enemy. And however, around the 60s, 50s, 60s, they decided to run it. They were doing experiments with the same, um, the scientists that came over from the project, Paperclip, from World War Two. They used those scientists to show them how these mind control, experiments would, how they would be done. And then they started to use them on the, military services first, military personnel. They would use them in after Vietnam and during Vietnam. So soldiers that went to Vietnam, they were under this mind control. It was like the first. It would be like the first time them having a look at. Um, they used it on the soldiers. The soldiers were the first experiments. But after the Vietnam, then they decided to start using it on some of the civilians because they realized that, a kind of a side effect that the soldiers went through was, you know, having to, you need something to facilitate, something to take away the voices because you start they gave these voice they gave one of the side effects would have been the voices, that these, soldiers were getting. And then, there's always this thing about the soldiers, needing, to relieve their pain. So instead, they realized that it would be a good weapon to use on the community, the civilians. And the first civilians that they started to do it to would have been the guys in the after the civil rights. They used it against, the the because, the civil rights movement. After the civil rights, you had you had, the Cointel Pro, which was which was which was which is really, it's also a form of, it's a form of MK Ultra. it's another name for the MK Ultra in practice. So they gave it this name, and and what would happen is after these years they realized how effective it was, in bringing down a community. In bringing down a community, it was so effective that people would act out. So they used it. It had different incarnations. It had some in the 80s. Had them in the 90s. They brought down the Bloods and the Crips in Los Angeles. The California. Um, a lot of it started off in Calif. A lot of it was between the Midwest and California, and then they kind of did they did like a three. I wanted to say a four-pronged attack here in the UK. Something was happening. There was a form of it happening here. There was a form happening on the west coast of America, and there was some happening in Miami, which was obviously like these are strategic places, base where there's a lot of military bases. This is all done by the government for control and to bring down communities. So anyway, just to continue on with the Chicago theme, is that these guys were targeted, and the experiment became world known around 2014. Around 2014. However, it had its inception around 2011, 2012. That's when the actual drill movement, the Chicago drill, would have was already had started, and then by 2014 it had gone worldwide, and these characters are now just something that I hadn't thought about is that there's only possibly a handful of the original collective. Um, DJ Academics, he kind of made them the most well known. Let me see if there's so far there's only two people that are still living, or a handful. There's two. The rest are either slain or in jail, in behind bars, incarcerated. Guys, sorry, I thought I'd just pause it just for a brief moment. So far, there's only two out of the most of there's only two that um are still here. Okay. Okay, guys. Yeah, just let it played out there because he, hindsight, looking back, everything he said, there was truth to it. Looking back is ironic now. There was truth to it. What he was saying, what he said, especially that they're either dead or in jail, and this mental illness. But the thing is the mental illness is a um, that's where the MK Ultra is being used to these people are being shot with radiation, and they're being the reason they act that way, or the mental illness is really what MK Ultra is just as when it's untreated by the right care. we're just going to give a shout out to him for that video, because he spoke a lot of truths. But that's how insidious also this system is, because they will give you the truth, and because the ball's already rolling, that you're unable to pretty much stop it from going any further until it's too late. And now, look, this video is around 2014, and it's almost 8 years later. There's only two people left. There's only two people left from this video. There's only two people left. Two men left. Like maybe about the women, I don't know, but there's literally only two of the stars of this era. There's only two of them that are left. So um, they're under. They're being attacked. They're under this form of mind control, which is really they're being manipulated from the outside, and it's been made to feel, it's been made to look as they're just unruly or people without any guidance. So in this episode, this was really about OTF oh 05, pardon me. It was about 051 Melly, and who's also connected to the the passing of OTF Newski, because it was those two factions that were pitted against each other in sort of a chess move, a game of chess. So instead of, those two factions were opposing each other, and from the system eventually would clear the board, by getting rid of also the deceased and the people that were the suspects. So they win both ways. Now, the reason why Melly stood out for this actual video, and just give a shout out to, Long Live Melly, and that a product of his environment. Also, and a step even further, is that his environment was controlled by the government. So it's a simulation. It's a simulated reality that he's living under. It's not. It isn't real. It isn't real. Chicago is one of those places where they're either really affluent, or they have then you have the other neighborhoods where the government has given them the rights to conduct experiments on the civilians. So just to end this video, the reason why possibly that he was chosen for this video is that the circumstances surrounding you know surrounding his the circumstances how he surrounding his death were kind of suspicious, because they got him. What happened was he would attend a party. He would attend this party by a there would have been cordial. There would have been, there would be, between the factions that he went under. There would have been possibly an associate, you would say, but the main talking point that I would like to add is that they used somebody who was a on the payroll, who could have been on the payroll of the police. on of the not the police, sorry, because this is the secret government is beyond the police. The secret government, when I say police, it gives the impression that we're talking about the person in uniform outside stopping somebody for. It isn't. It's a faction within a. It's a faction within the it's, these the deep state or the shadow government have people in all elements of every service. So it wouldn't be fair to just say the name like that. What I mean is that these the deep state, this element of the government, this rogue, it's rogue. It's it's only somebody made an interesting point. They said that okay, I'm gonna just leave that there. What I was going to say is basically the person that is supposedly would have been the person behind the trigger. He was hired to he was hired to he was hired for this particular incident, this particular job. He was hired to shoot Melly, and he would have been promised that he would have been protected. The logistics would have been protected, and the reason why this is a speculation, but the reason why he was able to get away with this is because there's been a pattern, and there's been a pattern of the deep state doing this, where to they use somebody to as a Manchurian candidate, which Melly would have been a Manchurian candidate. He would have been used as a Manchurian candidate, and after a particular time, he would have somebody else would have been used to effectively take him out. They would have been used to take him out. So he would have been used as a candidate because in all the cases that he was involved in, there was a hint of him having this intelligence was that was afforded to him. You know, this intelligence that was afforded to him, and the way he was taken out, it doesn't match the person that he was. So when you look at those two together, you say something is out of character here because he went to a party where it was a surprise party. It was it was a death party that he went to, and he walked in there. Everybody knew except for him, even though there would have been people that warned him and said, "Oh, maybe it's not a good idea for you to go there." He still never thought they would do this to him. So there was certain assurances that would have been made. The person that pulled the trigger, the person that was behind it, is now safely behind bars. Okay, guys, this video is getting a bit long, so I thought I'll just leave that there. This is the second episode. Um, possibly, we're going to in the next video we're going to speak a little bit more about Melly because um, for the title, I would have liked to have added a few more things here about him personally. Um, um, but I believe that as a subject that he kind of helped tell the story because his character was that he was this mystery figure, and and sometimes that's just how we have to you know leave the rest from there. But I'll see you on the next episode. Um, until then, God bless and love you all.